Here we go.
Do it.
Okay, cool.
Here we go.
Welcome back to Coffin Talkin', where we unravel the mysteries, embrace the peculiar, and find humor in the unconventional world of funerals and death. Here's our storyteller, Frank.
Hi, Holly. Hey, Coffiners.
Hi.
You know what? This episode starts a new month and away from the storytelling. And now we're beginning to, well, I guess the storytelling of just stories, but now we get to go back into the episodes of true to life and things that actually occur within the funeral
Things
industry.
that
So this will be
actually
good.
have happened to you.
Yeah, this will be good. This will be a fun one.
Yeah, that would be good.
I shouldn't say a fun one. It'll be good to get back into the routine.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh-oh. A little bit of foreshadowing, I guess.
Yeah.
So how are you? How was your week? How was Halloween?
It was good. You saw the picture I sent with all the decorations I had up. Yeah, just with this. So, Coffiners, just so you know, I just have this one little kind of curvy thing with ghosts on it. Behind it, you can put votive candles in it. So that was stuck into the ground. And then right behind it, I had a pumpkin that I carved. And that was it. That was the extent of my Halloween decorations this year, which is totally it's not me. I would rather have all of my decorations up. But yeah, I got kind of disappointed this year because I kept trying to get it, got home later and later. And by the time Halloween rolled around, it was way too late. So
yeah.
You will be happy to know that I did. What was you saw the decoration on the pumpkin, Holly. What did it say?
It was amazing. It said Coffin Talkin'. And it was done very well.
Thanks, Holly. A lot of people came over and said, "Hey, we're listening to that podcast."
Seriously.
And then my neighbor said, "You have a podcast?" I said, "Yeah, it's called Coffin Talkin'."
Hold up the pumpkin.
Yeah, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, now I've got something to listen to." So we'll see.
There you go.
We'll see if there's a spike in numbers.
Halloween.
Yeah. But on the off chance that someone might have not seen it on Halloween, I have let it up for the last 2 nights.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Good.
And so last night was the last night I promised Lisa, the fictitious one, that it would be no longer in the front yard. And that was it. Last night was all.
I mean, November is still time for pumpkins.
I know, but not carved ones.
It's just fine.
Yeah.
It can be hiding amongst the others.
That's right. We do have 2 out there that are not carved it'll be nice to have. Maybe just get a couple more and just kind of create a little bit of a pile of pumpkins.
Pile of pumpkins, yeah.
For Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I love doing that. I love going and getting the really odd pumpkins that no one would pick out, like the really creepy and gnarled ones with all the boils on them. I love those ones.
So those all come in different colors too, right?
Uh-huh. They have white ones, green, yellow, orange.
Yeah, very nice.
Those are the best ones.
Mm-hmm. That's what I think.
Because they have character. They have character. They have personality. No one wants to talk to them, but they have a big personality.
There it is. All they need is a face, Holly.
Seriously, that's it.
And then you carve them. And happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Our pumpkin friends are going to join us.
Oh, that would get real creepy really fast.
Oh, yeah. No kidding. And what about your week?
It was good. We watched a movie yesterday, and it's an old one called A Knight's Tale. Have you seen that?
Yeah, with Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was pretty good.
Yeah.
I liked it. It was very, very funny. Like the elements of the movie that they chose to bring in modern elements to, because it's supposed to take place in medieval times when jousting was at its height. But then they have like this ball, and the main love interest comes in, and her hair is green and purple. You're like, what is going on here? But it was good. It's a good
Yeah, it's
movie.
been a while since I've seen that show, actually. Who was the main lead? Who was the female lead?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that I've ever seen her in anything else.
I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, but it was a good movie.
Good.
And the rest of the week was good. It kind of just flew by, and now we're here.
Here we are.
Here we are. Oh, one update that I hate
Yes.
is that daylight savings time happened today, switched on us. So I guess now we're the same time as you, but
yeah,
I just hate daylight savings.
So is it dark there
so
yet?
much. No, not yet. It's only 3:30, so give it half an hour.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, I'm just kidding, but no, it's not dark. It will be dark probably at 6:30.
Hold it. You hate this particular part of daylight savings, or the daylight savings in general?
I hate daylight savings in general, but I hate this one the most because it makes the days so short.
But you got an extra hour, Holly.
No, that's not how it works. You can't just invent another hour and have everyone change the clocks. That doesn't do anything.
Let me tell you,
Oh my
I worked
gosh.
security for a while in California, and I hated this night working because it added an extra hour to my shift.
Oh my, that's horrible.
It is horrible. And so, anyway, yeah, that's my story. I don't need to go into much detail on that particular part, but yeah, it was, I did not look forward to this evening or that last evening. Yeah.
Oh, so that was your story. That was Let's Be Frank today.
That was it. What do you think? What do you think of that one?
Come back next week. With more stories for you.
Oh, I could tell you just briefly that we were armed security officers in a gated community, and we had our weapons taken from us because the guy on the shift directly behind mine shot a dog.
What?
And killed the dog. He thought he was being attacked by the dog, so he shot it. And so, that was the end of our weaponry on our side. We then carried, it wasn't even tasers. It was just billy clubs.
Billy clubs? That sounds even worse.
Do you know what a billy club is? You know what a nightstick is? A nightstick, the cops use, and they whip it. They were called billy clubs when I was growing up. So
that sounds very violent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't make me get out the billy club, Holly.
Oh no. Watch out, dog. Oh man.
So anyway, that was, and I quit shortly thereafter because, really,
you were only in it for carrying the gun.
That is exactly right, Holly. If you're there, let me just tell you, if you're protecting $1 million homes in a complex, in a division that probably the least expensive home was $1 million, and someone tries to ram that gate.
Oh yeah.
All you're going to do is stand back and let them ram the gate, because
you can throw your billy club at them.
You mean nightstick?
Yeah, you can throw it at the car.
Yeah, that won't do any good. Yeah.
Maybe they'll stop.
Yeah, so anyway, I just thought I didn't want any confrontation. And there had been times in the past that there had been major confrontations. And so I just did not want that to happen without the backup of a sidearm. Because chances are the people that were confronting you had a weapon. And it just wasn't worth it to me anymore.
Okay, so was it scarier for you being confronted by someone like that, or someone who has passed away and you're seeing their spirit and it's very clearly threatening because you went into an area that you can't really defend yourself against them?
I think the main difference is that with a weapon on your side and you feel threatened, you can pull it from the holster and then be ready to raise it before anyone could even have theirs pulled from wherever it's at. They already know they have a gun trained on them, and they aren't gonna move.
Right.
They'll just usually back away. But I always thought that would be kind of bad then too, because if they wanted to take a vendetta, they could just drive off in a distance, right? Pull their gun and come roaring back and start opening fire. So I don't know. It was just, the whole thing seemed, the more and more I think about it, it seemed a little sketchy. So that's probably part of the reason I worked there for about 9 months.
All right. Well, let's get to the real story for
What?
today, and
What?
I mean, yeah, think of one really fast.
Okay, got it.
Great. Let's be frank.
Thanks, Holly. Today I want to talk to you about. I've talked to you in the past about some of the individuals that I've worked with, and this is going to be no exception. This is another individual that I've worked with, and just the circumstance about what took place. I was thinking about 2 weeks ago, wondering what's happened with his family, which he didn't have any, which will come up here in the story. So the company that I worked for was on the market for sale. And the company that I worked for had, I think, 5 different mortuaries. No cemeteries, but mortuaries. And eventually the sale went through. And so with the sale, you get a merge of personnel from where the company was that purchased you and the company that you're currently with. And so there's a mixture of personnel between both companies. In that mixture, there was people that worked specifically in the funeral aspect of the funeral home, and then there were individuals that were just maintenance, which to me was mind-boggling, actually, because I'd never really experienced that. But if you had a problem with anything in the building, you would call this company or this individual, and then he would farm out workers to come over to the mortuary to make sure that it was taken care of and cleaned up. Perfect example. Remember the story or the episode a couple back where the gentleman was shot and killed in the viewing?
Yes.
That was that company. So you get the call, you give him a call, he's there, and by the time 8:00 in the morning rolls around, everything is, it's just like it never happened.
Right.
And so this is the same company and the same organization that we're referring to. This particular individual, I could see that he had actually a kind of a storied history in that he was into drugs. He had a hard time with being able to interact with other people. He felt most comfortable when he was placed in a situation or a room or environment where he had to build and create. So that's this gentleman that I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this evening or today. This individual was tasked with the idea in one of the mortuaries that I worked. There were two chapels, and they decided to do a total renovation on the larger chapel. And so the company, unfortunately, they gave him a month to get it completed, but they didn't give him personnel to work. And so every once in a while, I would just, when things were slow in the mortuary, I would just get into my grubbies and I would go in there, and the only really thing I could do is pull nails from molding. I could do some painting, help move pews out of the chapel into the main foyer. But the main construction side was his expertise. And so I would do whatever he was asking me to do. And this went on for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I started to get, little dreams about the work that I was doing, interaction with him in my dream, saying, Frank, that looks a little bit, but next time I want you to do it this way. Some of those little interactions.
Yeah.
And so I would never mention those, but we became very good friends, but only because as we're throwing paint and he's putting up molding and tearing down walls, you can't help but talk. Right. And so we're talking and enjoying and I thought we were enjoying one another's company. And he started to, tell me a little bit about his past. And part of that past was that he had a family that actually disowned him when he was younger, and he had no connection, no contact with his mother or his father at that moment for the past 12 years. He didn't know if they were alive. He didn't know if they were dead. He didn't know even if they were still in the same state. So I said, what about siblings? He said, no, I was the only child, at least that I'm aware of. I was the only child. And I said, oh, wow. So you really have no one that you can talk to or actually share experiences with. And he goes, nope. He said, I just do it with the individuals that I work with, and that's perfectly fine with me. So that's kind of the basis or foundation between his and my relationship. So as we started talking, he brought up some of the activities that he did as a younger man. And then, of course, through those activities, he got into drugs. He got into alcohol. He found himself just totally feeling uneasy and sick most of the time. So, and this was physical ailments. And I said, well, in the world, what is going on with you? What's been happening? And he said, because of his hard addiction to methamphetamines, and then his trying to break from that, but then he went immediately to alcohol, and then he started mixing the two. He said his body his body just wasn't able to handle things the way they had been, or the way he thought that it could and should. And so he said that about a year prior to this conversation, he had totally dropped off of the drug use, which was great. It was great. And so on one occasion, he just looked at me and he smiled, and I said, wow, your teeth, I can see how, because when meth addicts or when meth users use a lot, their teeth take a brunt of the effect of the side effects of the drug. And so I said to him, I said, I can see how that has happened to affect your mouth. And he goes, yeah, and it's sometimes painful to eat. And I said, yes, what are you going to do about it? He said, I made a goal that this next year I am going to get my mouth totally redone.
Oh, wow.
And I said, oh my gosh, good for you. And that's fantastic. So we continued working, and another week or two went by, and then all of a sudden 2 friends showed up that were friends of his, and they were working. And you know how sometimes you can get a feel or a sense of the individuals that you're there working with, and you can sometimes say, well, I just don't feel comfortable with this person. I'll be cordial and everything. I just don't feel comfortable. I don't want to be left in the same room with them. So that's the way I was feeling. And I mentioned it to my friend as they left. And then he said, yeah, but he said, they're making me finish this chapel by a certain date. I'm way behind. So I've got these guys here.
I need the extra help.
Yeah, I need the help. And so I said, well, that's understandable, because I couldn't be there every day. And not that I was much help anyway. But so day after day, they would come in. And finally, the chapel was completed. Now, the week before the chapel was completed, an interesting thing happened. I looked at my friend and I said, oh my gosh. And he goes, what? And I go, you have upper teeth. And the upper teeth were just beautiful. They were beautiful. They had been placed in there, but he didn't make any big announcement that they were done and completed. And I said, what are you going to do with the lower ones? He said, they start tomorrow. And I said, oh, that's fantastic. And so I just kind of felt really good for him, because he was starting to actually put some time and effort back into his own life with regards to things that he had done in his past that now he's trying to cover up, or at least make better. So these guys, the 2 friends of his and him, they decided as a time of celebration, they would go ahead and go to a local bar and would have a couple of drinks, have some dinner, and just kind of catch up on old times, kind of laugh and stuff like they used to do. And that's fine.
Right.
And so the next day came around, and he was in the chapel just doing some touch-up paint work. And I said, hey, how did your evening go last night? He said, it was good. He said, it's interesting for me to note that I don't have that real desire anymore to be in that type of a situation or setting. And I said, oh my gosh, yeah, good for you. And he goes, the main thing is that I just want me to feel better. I just want to be doing things for me for a while. I said, good for you. And that's okay, because every once in a while you can look at your own life and just say, yeah, you're right. You should be doing maybe something that would be what you would consider beneficial for you. And so as we were talking, I said, hey, I've got an issue on the upper level. The stairs, when we go into the door's not closing. And it was very important that the door would close automatically, because if it didn't, it would remain open and people could come and go. And you just didn't, and people could see in the door, they could see what was happening, whether you're addressing an individual. And you guys know the layout of this building, because we've talked about it before under Hoodie. But I just remembered looking down the stairs, and he was standing there at the base of the stairs and said, Frank, I'll have that fixed for you this afternoon. So sure enough, the next morning I went up the stairs, opened the door, and slammed. It slammed right behind me. I go, man, great, good job, man. It's so nice to have, because we had never experienced that before under the old management. You'd put in a request, and it would be like 2-3 weeks before it would actually be attended to.
Right.
But this company, I mean, they were right on it. As soon as the request went in, they had the materials either that same day or early the next day, and it was done within a 48-hour period, regardless of day, regardless of the time of week, whether it be Monday through Sunday. They were there. That request was there. It was made and done. So I was talking to him, and he said, "Hey, you got a minute? Let's go have some lunch." And so I just went to lunch. Went to lunch with him. Behind the building at the time was a Sears and Roebuck. And so we went to their cafeteria, and we sat down and we had a nice little sandwich and meal. And he was talking to me, and he had received 3 of his, I guess, 12 teeth that they were going to try and put on the bottom part of his jaw. And he looked at me and he smiled and he had and I said, "Oh, you're like a beaver, where you're having to chew everything with the front of your teeth."
The front
teeth.
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah, okay, yeah, that's funny, Frank. Yeah, good."
Yeah, great. So, thanks a lot, Frank.
But he was excited because he was going to, by the end of the week, have a full set of teeth, up and down. And so I was very happy for him and excited. Well, that particular evening, I went home and I dreamed about this gentleman, and in my dream, he said, "Frank, don't worry about me. You can do it. Whatever you set your mind to, you can do, and you can do it well. All you have to do is have the confidence that you can do it." And I just thought, well, I'll have to talk to him about that in the morning and see what he thinks about my dreams.
Yeah.
So the next morning came and nothing. And I just thought to myself, what's happening here? And so I got busy with either cleaning the building, cleaning the restrooms, whatever the case might be, or sweeping out the entryway. There are certain jobs that you have to make sure that the building's in proper order for families to come in. And I was busy doing one of those jobs. Yeah. And when in walked my friend's boss, and he goes, "Frank, have you seen so-and-so?" I said, "No, I haven't." And he goes, "We've been trying to call him, and we don't know exactly where he's at, and we don't know." And he made an admission that I wasn't really, I was surprised by. He said, "We don't even know where he lives."
What?
I said, "What?" That's exactly what I said. "What?" I said, "Can't you where do you send his checks?" And he goes, "He picks up his checks. We don't send him anywhere. The address is on the mortuary's address."
Oh.
I said, "Oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me." So a day went by, and then another day went by. Finally, I was downstairs and no one had seen him. And I'm sitting at the desk and the phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's his boss again. And he said, "Hey, Frank, have you been upstairs?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "I'm going to hold the line. I need you to go upstairs for me." So I went up the stairs, and as I'm walking over to where the phone is there, because we didn't have little cordless phones, I had to go upstairs I put him on hold and pick up the phone upstairs. And he goes, "Can you just tell me who you see on tables up there?" And I said, "Sure." And I just walked over, and there was my friend on one of the tables. And I said to him, I said, "Did you know that he had passed away?" He said, "That's what I had heard, but I didn't know for sure. And I knew that you two were friends and that you would be able to recognize him immediately if he had passed away."
Oh my God.
And so I put my hand on my friend's chest, and I said, "What in the world happened?"
Yeah.
Because he was doing so well and everything. Right? No, remember, he'd been missing for a couple of days.
Oh.
And so finally, someone had called and said that, "Hey, we've got a so-and-so here in our office," which was the medical examiner, "and we need to know if you know of this individual." And so my boss said, "Yes, we know of him. We're doing some work in our building." And he said, "Well, can we release him to you?" And so obviously that's how he was in our upstairs facility. And so as I got back on the phone with his boss, and he just started to weep. He just said, "I can't believe he was doing so good." And he and I just both, I started to tear up, and I'm looking at my friend, and I'm just thinking, what in the world happened to him? So anyway, we ended our conversation. I walked over to this individual and again put my hand. Now remember, he hadn't been embalmed or anything, but I put my hand on his chest, and I noticed a gunshot wound, and a gunshot wound that had happened in the temporal area. And so
oh my gosh,
what have you done? In just introspection of what may have been happening with him, here's the full story. His 2 friends that he brought back into his life which he felt like after that one first dinner, after they'd been together for a while, he had made that comment that he didn't feel comfortable in that lifestyle anymore, right? Well, apparently
Yeah.
his friends had talked him into going to someone's home. I don't remember whose home it was, but they started to drink and started to tell stories and stuff. And then someone pulls out a gun and they play a little game called RR, Russian roulette.
No,
Yeah.
seriously?
Yep. And so unfortunately, my friend, the weapon went off with him. The two were either on drugs or totally drunk, but they didn't
Mm-hmm.
go anywhere. But someone had the wherewithal to call the cops, and so the two were arrested, and that's how we were able to get this signed, or at least the kind of the backstory of what took place and what happened to my friend. So I looked at him and I just thought to myself, and I don't know if you know much about impact of or volume of weaponry, but sometimes it can wreak real havoc on someone's skull.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened. And his skull had collapsed just enough to where if you looked at his mouth, that top, not the mandible, I don't remember what the name of the top plate is, but where his teeth had just been fixed. This was the thing that made me the angriest, and of everything that happened, but his teeth were now collapsed. And I thought, here he had gone and spent all this time and money trying to get his mouth looking better, and now it was in a collapsed form. And I was thinking and focusing on that and thinking, here he was trying to get some part of his past corrected, and yet the past is what caught up to him. Mm-hmm. So let's shoot forward just a little bit, and in the interim of between the time that we had discovered that he had passed away and the time that he had actually a service, and the company that I worked for, very kind, they put everything together for him as far as a burial is concerned, and they placed him in one of the cemeteries that they owned and along the fence line. And I remembered thinking, oh, geez, there's going to be quite a few people here. Well, there were only 25 of us, maybe 30 in the service. And I remembered him saying that he didn't know where his parents were. He didn't have any siblings. So he really, truly died by himself. And I, as I think about this story and about what transpires with the thought process that takes you to that point in thinking, hey, it's okay because the gun's not going to go off. I'm pretty confident that it's probably going to go off on someone else, but not me. I wonder how many times we find ourselves in that same type of position or circumstance where we just think we're going to continue to live and be okay, regardless of the decisions that we make. So as we had the service and it concluded and we made our way to the graveside, about 6 months later, I was out visiting his grave and there was a marker that had been placed on the grave. And I found it interesting, and it was his boss that actually bought the marker to be placed on his grave. And it had his name, his date of birth, date of death. And the inscription read, "Hands can build. Also, hands can destroy." And I just thought and I looked at it and I thought to myself, well, is he looking at that as the carpenter side? Or is he looking at the way his life was going and ended? Do you see what I mean? So I guess you could read it either way. And I kind of think it was meaning towards the fact that how he ended up taking his own life with his hands. But I kind of like to remember him as the hands that could build. But to build, you have to destroy. You see what I'm saying? So in other words, whatever was already in existence had to be torn down for something new to be put back up. Yeah. And so that's the way I kind of like to look at it. He wasn't buried in the middle of the cemetery where was a prominent spot. He was buried along a fence line, which, if you know anything about cemeteries, those spaces are very hard to sell because no one wants to be on a fence line. And so they're almost like pauper graves. But I'll always remember when I drive by that particular cemetery and I look off in the distance, I think to myself, there lies my friend. And that is where I would probably never have even known him had I not had that business not been sold and merged. Now, before I end the story, I told you that I had a dream about him coming in saying, you can do it, Frank. You can do whatever you set your mind to. It's all up to you. Mm-hmm. In that same dream, and the reason it kind of caught me off guard was that he said, don't ever think of me in a bad way. I'm perfectly fine. I'm good. And I thought to myself, well, why in the world would you tell me that in a dream? And it was after that day that we no longer knew where he was. And so I find that very interesting for me that maybe I was the only one that he was a friend with. I have no idea. And so I feel kind of obligated to let others know that you should actually, I don't know how else to say it other than the fact that there was no warning. There was no indication as far as what he might be doing through that evening. And I think sometimes we as individuals will interact with people on a daily basis, and all of a sudden something tragic happens. You hear about it the next day, and you just think, oh my gosh, if I were only more aware. But how could you be more aware? But there are certain circumstances and conditions that we could actually look at and be a part of, that you can actually have some sort of indication as to what is transpiring in the person's life. And then you might be able to be that instrument to be able to just step in and just say, hey, and you don't have to confront them about it or anything. You just step up and you just say, hey, you want to go to lunch sometime? Let's go to lunch tomorrow. If as soon as you make plans with somebody, now their mind is focused on something else.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's very important, that coffiners understand that you just never know what could happen or what could transpire. But I'm just telling you of an experience, of a story that happened to me personally with a personal friend. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, that's that story for today, Holly. Any comments on that one?
That's really interesting. I mean, it's heartbreaking.
It is.
I'm sorry that you went through that, or that your friend went through that as well.
Yeah. But
I think there's in a way, it can be hopeful as well, because he had a rough past. And I think just with that inscription of hands can build, hands can destroy, I wish that they would have added onto that and just said, but then hands can build again. Or something like that, like, even if we build bad habits for ourselves or bad ways of life, we can destroy that way of life, and then we can build something new for ourselves.
You know what? It's a good point. I wonder if it were reversed, that would be so much better. Hands can destroy, but hands can build.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I just think anything that happens in this life, even the most tragic things, if you choose to have hope and move forward with hope, it can be made into a beautiful something.
Yeah.
Even though it was tragic, I'm sure you don't wish that you never met him just because he had a tragic end. But now people can hear his story and change their own lives.
That's right.
Because of what he was doing.
I'm going to tell you something that I find the most impressive and amazing thing to me is that when I first met him, I would never have thought that he had a drug problem sometime in his past. I would never have thought that he was an alcoholic to any degree because of the changes he had already made.
Right.
That's the benefit I see from the friendship that I saw from him, is that he was the person that I saw and appreciated and trusted, regardless of what his past may have been.
Yeah.
Because people, and that's true with all of us, we all have a past. We all have the opportunity to make those changes and the ability to be better than we were yesterday.
Yes.
So every day we try and do better, people will notice that, and the actions and fallacies of our past will tend to fade away. That's what I believe. And so And so that's the way I look at my friend. And regardless of what transpired or what he found himself such a situation or circumstance in, still doesn't change the fact or the first impression I had of him when I first met him. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Just remembering hands can always build something better than it had been.
Yeah.
Or something more that wasn't there before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So it's very interesting, for me anyway, to even see lives that you come into contact with. And you see this every day. Maybe not every day, Holly, but I do. Where people, and we've talked about this before, where people, after someone has passed away that they love, they'll live in regret. Yes. And truthfully, there's nothing you can do about it at that point. So let the regret be a building stone, something that you can leap from to something better. Do something that your loved one would expect you to be or to become. Don't just wallow in that feeling of regret. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
There's that. Yeah, build something better. Yeah,
exactly. Oh, Holly. And see, where you have a new job now too, and I'm just going to take it off a little bit, but where you have a new job now, so every day you're trying to do something different, right? How can I do something a little bit better than I did yesterday with regards to the clients that I currently serve?
Right. Yeah.
And I think every single one of us should have that same type of attitude or goal. So like in our business, how can the business be a little bit more conforming to, say, a group of people, a culture, a circumstance or surrounding that maybe people are finding themselves immersed in? I think every single day, if you have that type of an attitude, that you'll become better and better for yourself personally.
Yeah, absolutely. For those around you. And I would add as well, just every day taking care a little bit better for yourself.
Yeah.
Like taking care of yourself better.
Yeah.
Because it is easy just to say, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. But if you take care of yourself, then you can take care of other people.
Yep. I agree. I'm just going to say one more thing that's just kind of a selfish thing. And that is, I hate to shave. I just hate to shave. But I'll tell you that as soon as I shave, I feel better about myself. And I know that people will probably look at me differently than if I had gone 2 or 3 days unshaven.
See, that's how I feel about washing my hair. There's just so much of it.
Okay, yeah.
Such a hassle.
It is kind of, I know, but yeah.
I get it. Just take care of yourself. Take care of the people in your life. I guess that's what we're trying to say.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And just pay attention to what's happening.
Yeah.
Just listen. And like in this case, I don't play the regret game with him, but I will look back in my own mind and I just think, was he giving me any indication that was what they were going to do that night? Go play. Because if I had picked up on anything like Russian roulette or that game they were going to play, I would have said, hey, you know what? Maybe you want to come over and watch a movie with me, something like that.
Right.
Rather than putting himself with his friends and where the gun was involved. So,
but I mean, also, I think that maybe he knew you well enough to know that you might be doing that, and that's why he was able to send a little confirmation in a dream to you.
Maybe.
Say, hey, don't worry about me.
Yeah.
You can do anything you want.
Yeah.
And don't dwell on this because, truthfully, you can build more of yourself if you don't dwell on it.
Yeah. And I will say this. I didn't think anything about the dream until he didn't show up to work. And then I started thinking back, why in the world would I had that dream?
Why did I have that dream?
Exactly.
Right.
And then 2 days went by, 3 days went by. Finally, he was at our facility. So,
well, there's our first story back from Spooky Stories. I hope
sorry, I had to be a
with
downer. Sorry, I had to be a downer, coffiners, but we're right back into our seats. Here we go.
Yep, here we go, round 2.
That's right.
But thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye, coffiners. Have a great evening.